Okay, in yesterday's session, we have seen how to create a custom validator. I'll just brief revisit again. So this is our custom validator, which is deriving from validation attribute, and it is taking a parameter is measure B. So right now I'm passing a hard-coded value, true or false, and based on that, it is if is measure true and then mobile number is null, then it's returning false and displaying the error message. Otherwise, it is returning true and displaying the and not displaying any error message. And where did we use this attribute? In the view models. So here we are passing a hard-coded value. So instead of this hard-coded value, I want to pass this. I want to access this date of birth so that here I can change if the date of birth is and if the date of birth plus add some 18 years is less than or equal to greater than or equal to current date, then we think it's a measure and we need the mobile number as mandatory, otherwise it's not mandatory. So this is what I'm trying to achieve. So for this, in order to do this, we need to add some more code to this validation, custom validation. So there is a, just go here and check what else available here. Go to the implementation or go to the definition. Yeah, go to the definition. So if you see, so this is validation attribute class. So this is validation attribute class. So this, we implemented this method. We implemented this method. And if you check this, there is another method which is taking a value and also a validation context, but this is a public method and it's not virtual, so you cannot override. So which method we can use? So there, what virtual methods we have? So this is virtual method. This is protected virtual. This is protected method. This is virtual method. This is virtual method. Yeah, if you see another virtual methods, so in the child class we can override the virtual methods. In the child class we can override the virtual methods. We cannot override the non-virtual methods. So for more details about virtual and override, visit my YouTube channel. There is a detailed explanation how the virtual and override will work, and there are a lot of scenarios that will give more information about virtual and override. So now we have these two methods, few methods virtual. So um, those methods we can override in the uh, child. So here, come here, and so public are protected, virtual, valid. It's not virtual, it's a override. In the child class, it should be override. So validation result. So validation result, so which will take object value and validation context. This is important. Validation context. So this context will give complete object of your context. So that will contain your uh, model and other data. So this will return validation result dot success or failure. Okay, so make this protected, and this is okay. So we didn't give the is valid. You can make either protected. Yeah, this will be protected. Okay. So basically what this will do, this will, so just check what we are getting in this validation context, and internally we have to call this isValid method to implement our this thing. But again, how to pass the value? Okay, so here what is that? It's a date of birth. Okay, yeah, first we'll see how much what we're getting in the validation context. So open this validation context. So validation context, member name, mobile number, object type, display, items. Open this items, raw view, compare, go to object. Okay, so can you see the, you're getting the complete object. You're getting the complete model, right? So this validation context will contain this object instance. So you can retrieve the value object instance, and you can retrieve this DOB. So object instance dot DOB. So here you have to write some logic where date of birth, okay, validation context dot object instance dot get value object instance of DOB. Let's try this dot. How can you read this? Cannot index. Okay. So what is this object instance? Go to the implementation. So this object instance is a type of object. So how to retrieve? Go to debug one more time. Okay, you can do one thing. So this object instance, you can var view model equal to object instance. So this one you convert into, what is our view model? Patient information view model, right? So let's see whether you are getting the value or not. So generally when you implement this, all this you have to do, the debugging technique, whatever I'm using. So the view model, yeah, we got everything, right? So we got everything. Now I need to get date of birth. Okay, so dot this entire thing dot DOB. Yes. So if this DOB, now you check if date of birth. So if date of birth dot add years, add years of 18 greater than, less than or equal to, less than or equal to date time dot now, that means no validation required, right? If the if I add 18 years, this particular add years will add 18 years to the date of birth. If that is less than or equal to current date, that means he is not a major and we don't expect him to provide the mobile number. If it is greater than or equal to datetime dot now, so just call IsValid, okay, IsValid, and pass the value, okay, and capture this result where result equal to, if result is true, then return validation result dot success, or else return. So here for validation failure we have to do little different. So I'm going to create a private method, private validation result of failed validation result. You can give any name, failed validation result, okay. So again this will take validation context, so or else you can directly do this, you don't need to do all this stuff. So here return new validation result format error message validation context dot display name and what else we can do, and member name. What is the member name? Yeah, just do this. Okay, I don't want to overcomplicate this. So now we don't need this condition. We don't need this. We don't need this. We don't need this. Okay, go to your, I'll come back to this and I'll explain it. Where is your, okay, so we don't need this. Okay, so here I'll explain it again. So our custom attribute to validate our custom validation attribute, which is deriving from the validation attribute, it was same like earlier. So now it is not taking any parameters and the constructor is empty. And I added a new method, and this method is a virtual method in the validation attribute class, and it's also the name is valid, but it's taking two different two parameters. One is the value and the other one is validation context. And from validation context, I can read the entire model and a particular property DOB. If the date of birth is, I'm adding 18 years to the date of birth and I'm checking the current date. And then if this condition true, then I'm calling this is valid. Okay. And here I'm checking whether the object, whether the mobile number is empty or not. And if it is empty, I'm returning false. Otherwise, I'm returning true. So if the result is true, that means it's a success. Okay, so if the result is false, then I have to display this error message. And even if I add 18 years to the date of birth and it is less than or equal to current date, I no need to do any validation. So in that case, I can directly pass the success. Understand this one? So just check. Okay. So let's see how this is going to work. So now the date of birth, it's 1998. Okay. So it should be greater than or equal to the condition. So now it's calling this method and the value is, I gave some number, mobile number, and the validation context. Okay. So you can, okay, might be this is a text or I don't know. So what this doing? So, okay. So if I add 18 years, so it will be 2016. Okay. So the current date time, okay, might be, so 2016 is, okay, the condition should be in reverse. So it should be less than or equal to today date, right? If it is greater than or equal to today date, that means it's a future day. And I'll remove this mobile number, run one more time. So this is really important and it's a real-time scenario. I don't know how many like tutorials available in the market about this. Okay, so now it's going to check the is valid and the mobile number is empty and it's returning empty, and so the result is false. So that's why it is displaying the error message. Please enter mobile number, right? So now what I'll do, I'll say 2020. So there is a kid joining 2020. So now I don't need to check because that is less than or equal to, and I'm returning success. Okay, success. So it will go to the database. Is it clear? So summary again. Yeah. So in interview, if someone asks, how did you implement? So you take this as a complete scenario. And if someone asks about validations, or else in interview, you can say, I actively implemented custom validations covering different scenarios. You can write down a use case on your own notes by specifying the same thing. And when they ask about more questions, you can explain. So you created a custom validator and that overriding two methods of is valid. One is taking only object value. The other one is taking object value and the validation context. And from the validation context, you can retrieve the context, complete context. And I am retrieving the model in this question, present in this question. And from that, I can retrieve the specific attribute, date of birth or any other. And if I add 18 years, if I do some validation and if it matches that validation, then I am calling the IsValid method where I am returning true or false based on the, here only I can do. So if I don't need to go to this method, so here this IsValid method, instead of that I can check whether the value is null or not. If the value is null, then I can display this message, or else I'll return this success. If this condition doesn't met, and again I'm returning success. Okay, so this is real time in your applications. If there is a requirement, you have to do like this. So you have everything. You have your entire model. Um, so this model based on different parameters, you can decide whether you can do different validations and you can return true or false. And finally, if everything goes smooth, you are returning success. You are returning success. Okay, so here simply you can do like this also. If not result, then this, if the result is false, this one, and if the result is true, you are returning success. If the condition doesn't match, you are returning success. Okay, so this is called custom data annotation, custom data annotation attribute. Any questions? But you implement it. You implement with different scenarios, with the different data parameters. I use date of birth. You use some other parameter, which you take it from the postman request. Okay, then you do some validation, and based on that, you can return the value. Okay, so yeah, I think the silence I'm thinking as a no questions. But practice this session. Okay, write notes, because this particular scenario it has potentially it will help you in interview, and it will help you in your real time. So if the interviewer doesn't whether he asks question or not, you drive him. So when you are explaining the project, or when you are talking, uh, when you are explaining the project, you can tell him that you actively implemented validations at your API. So I involved in writing multiple custom validator based on business rules. You drive him. So then he'll ask questions about how you implemented custom validations, and then you clearly explain. So this will give positive. If you explain the entire episode in a presentable manner, you will win him. Okay. Yeah.